Hi, I'm Seamless. And today's not Friday, but this is part 2 of today's How to Base 80, I think. How someone pointed out to me that this is my 400th video. It's not actually my 400th video, it's my 469th video, but 68 videos are private and unlisted, whatever. It doesn't count that toward my total video count. So this is like my 400th public video. It's also How to Base number 80, and it's also a How to Base with me using Massive effectively. Indeed. So like part 1, I'm going to play through the track again because damn, it's groovy and I like it. So here we go. It's this bass. If you didn't watch part 1, you don't really need to watch part 1. This is part 2. This is where I'm going to go everything over excruciating detail and talk about theory and how and why. If you already know what you're doing, go watch part 1 where I basically don't do any of that. But here we go. So this is this guy. Let's listen to what this sounds like by itself. The first thing I want to point out is that's actually high pass right now. And this is because in this track, I have actually a separate sub channel. Which is a new thing. It's a new thing for me. So that's what I'm going to do. I've done. And it's been cool. It's been an interesting experience. But it doesn't mean everything is high passed. So that's that. It's also a Vocodex bass. But it should be obvious. But however, not obvious, it's the fact that it's massive. I talked about it. It's also modern talking, which it's funny because I'm a massive noob. So I'm allowed to do that. Because that's what noobs do, I guess, is use modern talking. And you'd think this would be an April Fool's, but it's April 2nd, so it's not. So let's listen to what this sounds like without Vocodex. And that one EQ. Cool. So what's happening here, the crux of this, I like that word, crux. The crux of this, I'm pretty sure I know a guy named Crux. Like he's an artist on the forums of ImageLine. Or EDM production. The subreddit, and whatever. Anyway, the point of this bass is the utilization of filter FM on a low pass filter, which basically gives us the sort of on off half period effect that we get when we do the ring modulation neuro stuff in Citrus. And in fact, we're getting a lot more mileage out of this by doing that because we're using wavetables that have a lot of modulation built into it. So this is let's see what it sounds like without the filter FM. I guess I'll just turn the filter off too. Not much. This is because I've got bit crushing engaged, white noise and feedback. There's no feedback. It's not even on. So no white noise, no bit crushing, and no distortion. So we're basically just the oscillators and a little bit of I have restart via gate engaged, and I also have a tiniest bit of unison business. The wavetable position is very slightly engaged, and the panning is up a bit, but there's no pitch. Right on. So I'm using modern talking on bend plus minus with very up there intensity, and also using acid for some reason. I just picked a thing, and then bend plus and minus. Acid's at minus 24. Oscillator 2 modern talking is at, I almost said M audio talking is at minus 12. Modulation oscillators at minus 24, which is the bass of the whole thing. I put a macro up in some position on the wavetable to move it around, and that's what I'm automating in this yellow automation clip. I'm automating that. And you do this in Massive by tweaking around the knob, being like, you knob, and then you go to Tools, Last Tweaked, and you can have, this is the right-click menu as if you had just right-clicked an FL Studio knob. And you can create automation clip, link the controller, and all that good stuff. So like if I just done that, it's the same menu. So that's how you do that. And I prefer this method worlds more than using like the LFOs and performers inside Massive. And pretty much everyone I've ever known that use Massive just uses these. And I guess I kind of see the appeal of it, but like I do weird automation, so I kind of want to have flexibility. So that's why I do that. There's probably some smoothing or whatever, but I'm not doing terribly sharp things with this. It's also sort of, you can tell it's somewhat vague. Like modulation is not very solid, so it's not a big deal. So let's turn back bit crushing on. I just turned this on because I thought it was cool. Ended up being kind of cool. So noise. Can barely tell because of the bit crushing, but the kicker, remember, is that we have the filter on, but with filter FM. And we'd actually like to select a moment of this. So what this is basically doing is that it's modulating the filter cutoff position by the modulation oscillator. So this is with audio rate FM. And this is because it's a filter, it basically means going all the way on and all the way off, all the way on and all the way off. This is giving us the sort of, like I said earlier, the half period audibility that we got when we did the amplitude modulation route with Citrus. And like you might be thinking, well, but there is ring modulation. Ring modulation is the same thing. Like, why don't we do that? And that's just because there's not a lot of customizability in terms of what the modulation oscillator is doing. It's probably just a sine wave. And so a ring modulated sine, like at a sine wave, even at lower level, so it's doing two periods, kind of, or two up half period, and then the negative, you know, all that good stuff. It's still too smooth. It's not choppy. And we can kind of determine how choppy it is by what filter we use. Using a low pass or a high pass will get you this result. A band pass is kind of cool. Turning up the resonance kind of messes with it. So like you have modulation opportunities using the filter FM route. So that's why we do that. And then I distort it with the tube. And we get this real chunky, harsh sound with the restart via gate engaged. So that's always the same. I just hate it when it's like that. That's better. Also, determining where the modulation oscillator starts in phase is a good way to, you know, to shape your sound. So that's kind of neat. I wonder if I can modulate that. I cannot. That's unfortunate. You can automate phase in Citrus, so that's why I checked. So that's what's up in Massive. And then magically, when you put it on a vocoder, even like this is pretty close to default almost. I mean, like I'm modulating the pitch all over the place. I am automating the unison sometimes, and I believe that's all I'm automating up here. Yeah. So then I put on order 4, half filter fatness, 47 bands. I turned off minimum time, but I didn't actually end up doing much with these. A hefty amount of release is somewhat important. So that's what's up with that. Draft is off. The carrier mixer is all the way up. Low pass is engaged a little bit, so we get some low end coming through. Although that's not entirely necessary because we're high passing everything. It's just I do that by habit. And considering this is modulating itself, this is not being modulated by anything. I'm just using Vocodex as a single serial effect. And Steam. Someone didn't have a good test. Actually, 1 second. I'm a professional. I am prepared. Yeah. Okay. I have 3 unison engaged, and I also am modulating this. See, the reason why I do that is because when you do unison in Vocodex, unison is a bit different in this regard than it is when we think about it in terms of like, oh, we're just changing the pitch of a couple of different voices. We are doing that, but pitch for a vocoder means band position. So unison in this sense means that we're spreading the band information. So if we have like a point and say, cool, here's 1 point, and then it would show up as like a band. If we spread it in 3 voices, this means that we're spreading out like 2 or 3 other bands. And that's so that when that one piece of information comes through right there in that particular part of the spectrum, a whole bunch more bands that would have showed up normally end up showing up. And this creates interesting things. So that's why I modulate it sometimes, but only sparsely. That's this guy here. And you can see it's most of the time he spends most of the time off. It's a very specialized effect. And it also is stereo business. So that's cool. The modulator bandwidth multiplier is a bit low. And what this knob does is it kind of sets the saturation for the same informational points. So again, if we had that 1 point of information, we could either have it be very sharp, where it will try its damnedest to keep one band alive for one particular peak of EQ, analysis. And then if you go the other way around, it's very rounded. So one band will pop up and then it like very slowly, curves off to the side. So basically what this does is it makes the band smoother, makes the band sharper. And, setting out the taste is the name of the game. Modulator band pitch, which is what I'm modulating, changes the overall position, like the position of the bands, since a higher pitched sound would mean more activity on higher parts of the speaker spectrum, which means that more bands would be active up there. So literally changing the pitch of the modulator means that we're moving the bands up and down. So we just move the bands up and down, which is what that does. In this case, because we're modulating itself, this kind of acts as like a formant control. We are not changing the pitch of the sound itself, but we are changing how it behaves in the spectrum, and which basically just comes out to be formants for us. The EQ profile moves around. In the bandwidth window, drop-down window, we have a whole bunch of options. This is the same, like these are all basically these knobs, but we're able to set them per band via these line graphs, which is why we're seeing more thickness of bands in the middle here, because I have set that to be so. And I mostly did that just digging around until I found something I thought was cool. Not a lot of like reason or theory behind that. Yes. Order 4 is what that is. Cool beans. Oh yeah, then I EQ'd it, which is mostly just a mixing thing, so that it fit with the song. So there, remember, this yellow automation clip is the macro from within Massive, and then there's the MIDI, and then this blue guy is the Vocodex pitch, and then this purple guy is the Vocodex unison, which will have this sort of effect on the sound overall. So a combination of what was originally a very light amount of modulation coming out of Massive, combined with sort of formant control via Vocodex, we're getting very super duper growly, but like sparse and sharp and empty, kind of like, I don't even know what to describe the sound is like. But it's the result of amplitude modulation via filter FM, which is kind of cool. Such. Look how lazy I'm being. I have all these audio samples from Leviathan that I'm using. What's funny is that this hat sample, I think actually might. No, it's got a snare in it, which means it's not mine. But one of these, there's some in there, some top loops and stuff that are mine in Leviathan. And it'd be funny if I used my own preset samples and stuff. That's just funny, and like risers and stuff I'm just taking out because I am lazy. But it does make certain things faster, doing that kind of stuff. Man. But yes, also don't forget that the sound is being supported by the sub, and it's also being compressed by the master. But it's not having a huge difference in terms of sound. So you should be able, it shouldn't be so surprising when you load this patch up in yourself and it's like, why doesn't it work? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, speaking of patch, what I will give you the massive patch. That's what I'll do. You might be like, well, I want the Vocodex preset and whatever. And like, I've had problems trying to send people Vocodex presets before, and it just hasn't worked out very well. And like I said in the first video, I'm going to send this guy, and do not ask me for a KSD because I'm not going to do it. I'm sure there's conversion things out there that let you do NMSV to KSD. I don't know anything about that because I'm not really a big massive user. But the Vocodex is super duper straightforward. Like, a lot of the stuff I did was superfluous. The whole point of using the Vocodex is that we're using the pitch to basically control formant position. That's all that is. That's this knob right here. The rest of it's filler. And, you know, bandwidth. Bandwidth and pitch are the two primary controls by which you use a vocoder to shape your sound. All pretty much the way like you need the sound to happen. Like you think, oh, it sounds too vocody. Like you solve that by messing around with the pitch and the bandwidth. And you can get as intricate as you like with Vocodex because Vocodex is awesome. Anywho, this is a fun track. I'm having fun with it. I'm enjoying it. Yeah. So if you have any questions about any of this, let me know. As usual, have a nice day.